you design something in InDesign, everything you use by importing into that software has to be in that folder. If you are taking a pattern from my stock images, you need to then make a folder and call it Letterhead. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just so you can see what you would need to do. So say I'm designing one for my letter. Say I'm doing a letterhead. I would then say File, New Folder, and say Teresa Letterhead. Because everything, if you make the chevron pattern or you just use a color shape from InDesign, you will not need this. Just design it in InDesign. But if you are importing anything into the software or placing it, that item has to be in this folder because it's like Illustrator. It's a link to that file. It's not the actual file. So if you ever sent that to someone to print it, they would need that file. So that's what we've always done with newspapers. So I'd make a folder. I'm going to copy this pattern that I'm going to use, and I'm going to paste it in here. So if you were taking it from the internet, say this is the one you're going to use, which you couldn't use for your project because it has watermarks on it, I would click, hold, drag and drop, and now it's in my folder. Okay? So if you are using a pattern like one of my backgrounds that you want to use from my courses, you can, but you have to put it in this folder. Okay? Then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to open up InDesign. So I'm going to go to my applications. I'm going to pick Adobe InDesign. And I'm going to open up InDesign. Now InDesign, remember, is what we call a pagination software. It means it's a page and layout design software. Magazines, books, brochures, newsletters. You can use it for flyers. That is the sole purpose of this software. All right, so we're going to open up a new document. So when this comes up, it's going to say document. So let's create a new document. And if that doesn't come up, you can go up to File, New, just like we do in Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, Microsoft Word. You are smarter than you think you are. If you know a little bit about one software, you actually know quite a bit. We're going to just do one page. And then we are going to make it letter. We do want it portrait, so that way it goes vertical. Columns, remember, columns do not print. They're just used to kind of help you line things up, like when you do newspapers, books, magazines. I'm just going to put 5 columns in there just in case I want to have something to line things up with. You do not have to put columns, but I'm going to put them so you can see what they look like. They do not print. You don't have to have them. They're just used to help you line things up and guide things. And then I'm just going to say OK. So 1 page, letter, 5 columns if you want, and say OK. Now, since this is an Adobe product, it is quite similar in the setup that you've seen in Illustrator and Photoshop. Your tools are on your left. Tools that have more tools behind them have that little black triangle on the bottom. On your right are generally your windows. I can bring mine over here. Again, up here, just like in Photoshop, you can go up here and say Essentials, Interactive, Print and Proofing, Typography. So if I'm doing a lot with type, it'll bring me all my stuff for my type. So I'm just going to do Essentials, because it's a lot of the stuff I'm probably going to need. Now, remember, we've talked about full bleed. If you ever do try to print a letterhead and the color goes out to the edge, there are special printers that do print to the edge. However, some businesses don't have those, so they'll print it larger and cut it down. So you just want to talk to your printer about what option you have, because nonprofits generally can't afford to print to the edge, but it depends on the printer you utilize. The purple lines are my guides. So those are the things that will not show up. They're just there to help me maybe line things up if I want. They're just visual guides. The black edge is the black of your paper. So that's the edge of your paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place an item on the page. There are multiple ways to do this. I'm going to show you 2 ways. So I'm going to do it kind of quickly. Then I'm going to go back and do it again in case you need me to do it again. So go up to your preferences, and you can change your units and increments. The reason they're in points is because graphic designers, we actually function in picas and points. I had to memorize how many points are in a pica, how many picas are in an inch. Since you guys are not true graphic designers, you're PR designers, I'm not going to make you memorize how many points are in a pica, how many picas are in an inch. But that's why it keeps popping up with points and picas, because that is what we utilize as graphic designers. So you can go up to InDesign Preferences, and then Units and Increments, and you can change it to inches. And then say OK, and then try it. Did that work? Okay, awesome. Any other questions? So remember, please ask questions. You know, when you have them, don't wait till, you know, if you need to interrupt me and say, hey, Miss T, or hey, Teresa, no problem. It's not going to offend me if you interrupt me. It's just going to offend me if you don't let me help you. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the item on the page. Now, I do have this item in my folder. I'm going to show you how to do it fairly quickly, and then I'm going to go back and repeat them. The hotkey in here for File Place is Command D as in dog. And now you can see it says Place. So I'm going to navigate through all my little folders to get to my artwork. So if you want to, you can just hit Command D, and then if you want, go find your pattern. I have a lot of folders, bear with me. I like to keep everything uber organized. And I'm going to pick this one. Now you'll notice that it pops up with your artwork, but it's not actually placed on the page. It's a little bit lower opacity, and it has a paintbrush with a kind of like a top and a left line. What it means is I can either click once and it will have the item appear automatically, or you can actually click, hold, drag and draw how big you need it to be, and it'll place it in that size. Now you can see this pattern is not super great. It's kind of square, but what you can do then is you can just move using the black arrow. I can just pull it and say, actually, I need it to be this large. Now you'll notice it's not going to fill up the page, but I can make it fill the page in a second. So again, the way you can do that is you can either go up to File Place, or you can hit Command D. I just like hotkeys. So again, Command D or File Place. I'm going to pick my pattern. I'm going to click once if I want to, and then I can draw the box, how big I want it, or I can just click and hold with the mouse and draw the box the size I want it to be, and let go. And it fills the shape. Okay? Now, if it fills the shape, it makes it go the size I want it in the box. However, if you did where you just click, the reason why it's nice to do the click method is it will do it proportionately. It will also, and the other one does as well, but it also makes it the exact size the artwork is. It makes it the size it is. So if you did just click, what you would want to do then is drag your box to the edge of the black. And let me scroll up. And then what we can do is we can change the way the item fits in this box. So what we can do then is if we just clicked once, we can draw the box to the edge of the page. The top black line, the bottom black line, the left black line, and the right black line. Then I can go up to Object, Fitting, because I'm going to change how this object fits into this box. Now there are two ways to do it, and I want you to look up here. Let me find it with something where you can actually see. Let me find a picture of a person. Let's go with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp. I'm a big Johnny Depp fan. So it's usually if the image is smaller than what you need it to be. So I can say File Place Johnny Depp, click, and there's Johnny Depp, right? So I want Johnny Depp to fill in here proportionately. I want Johnny Depp to be vertical. Well, there's different ways you can adjust patterns or images and how they fit inside the box you draw. So you can tell the box is all the way because it's blue on the edges. I can then go with the box selected. You can tell it's selected because it has these squares. I can go up and say Object, Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionately. Well, now I've lost Johnny because they're filling it proportionately. And I could use then this white arrow. So I'm not sure if they talked to you about the white arrow. The white arrow moves content within a box. So right now you can see I only see Johnny Depp's beautiful shoulder. But now if I use this white arrow, you'll notice when I move this white arrow over this image, do you see how now you can see like a brown square? What that means is, and now I have a hand, I can pull and change what you see of Johnny Depp, which, I mean, why wouldn't you want to see his beautiful face? So then I could put this in a magazine. I could put some text right here, blah, 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 quote from Johnny Depp, done. Magazine page in the bag. The other way you can adjust proportions of an item fitting into this blue square I drew is I can go up to Object, Fitting, Fit Content Proportionately. So filling the frame proportionally means that, hey, I might make it so large that we're going to lose Johnny Depp's right arm or his left arm, and we're only going to see part of him and not all of him. But we're going to fill the box you want proportionately. We're not going to make Johnny look taller. We're not going to make Johnny look fatter. Now, if you say fit content proportionally, it should not change much because he fits to the horizontally. So when it fits content proportionally, it will fit it to the one that's closest to it. It's not going to fill it down. It's just going to fit Johnny Depp proportionately. But if I need to have Johnny fill this entire space, say I wanted to make this into a page for a magazine with a quote on it, I can go up to Object, Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionately, use the white arrow again, move over here, you can see that brown square, and then I can drag his beautiful face over here. And then I can put a quote from Johnny Depp, page number. That's already part of my page design for a magazine. I mean, he always looks like he belongs in a magazine. So that's how you can do adjusting the fitting and your square. Now the other way to do art, if you can look up here, you can place your art using an art box or shape. If you look over here, you'll see you have a shape with an X on it. That is a shape tool to put in artwork. I can click and hold and change it to an ellipse, and I can say, so this is, the X means art will go here. Then I can actually say Command D, and I should be able to place it in that artwork, or in that shape. So I can say, let's make Johnny Depp into a circle. You can see Johnny Depp does not fit into the bottom of the circle. So what method of fitting do you think I should use? Fill frame proportionately or fit content proportionally? If I want to fit the entire circle. You're correct. Frame. Fill frame proportionately, white arrow, move his beautiful face, bam. So there are three ways you can import really that I'm going to teach you. File place, going up to that file menu, and I'll do it with my mouse real quick. File place, or you can just use Command D, which is the hotkey, and it places it on the page and you can draw the shape. Or if you want to add an extra step and draw a shape using the frame tool, because it's the frame for your artwork. No, it does not have an actual frame around it. I could then draw it and say file place. So people like doing this for newspapers because we can say, oh, we need it this big. You don't have to do that though. I could then put the computer keys in there. So those are the ways that you can place items on a page. Now if I wanted to put a frame around Johnny Depp, I can select it with the black arrow, and you can see up here now in my options bar, it says I have no fill, no stroke size. So I can say, actually, I want a stroke. I'm going to use a black stroke, and I want it 3 points or 4 points. Now you can see it has a black stroke around it. The thing about the stroke is also, if you look up here, you'll see that you can change it from solid to thick and thin, which you can't really see because it's real small, so let me make it huge. Okay, that's not really working so well. Let's make it even bigger. Thick and thin. Well, that's pretty crazy looking. It looks better when you're just drawing lines. So you can change your stroke to thick and thin, thick, thin, thick. I mean, a lot of things. Dash, dotted, wavy. Wavy is a little, maybe a little bit out there for a business card or a newsletter or a letterhead. So these are some things you can do. So now that we know how to place those items on the page and adjust it, let's use whatever method you want. Import your art onto the page, and let's fill it proportionally in that shape. So fitting, fill frame proportionately, okay? So all the way to the edges. Remember, the purple are just guides. Those are columns. They're not the edge of your page. The edge of your page is that black line. So yours should fill all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom, all the way to the side. All right, so we are going to make ours look like this. So what we're going to do is we are going to use that pen tool, but we're just making a weird looking square. It's not going to be difficult. So you already know how to use the pen tool, but you can look up here and you can see me do it if you want. I am going to add a new layer just because I like layers. So again, just like in Illustrator, you can see that the layer 1, I can click on it and say background if I wanted to, or texture. And I can tell it's on that layer because this is a light blue, and the light blue is by it. I can create a new layer, and I can call it white box. And whatever I draw on this layer will have red on it. So now I'm going to get my pen tool, P for pen, and I can just draw if I want, like they just have it here and they do a slanted line. So I can click here, and then click over here, click down here, click down here. And remember, just like in Illustrator, I can click and close it, and I just minused it, which is not good. And then I can have my shape. So this is not coming out. 1 point. Let's do a fill of paper. Let's see if that works now. There, now I can see it. It's just because I didn't have a fill is why we didn't see it. So again, let's get your pen tool, let's create a new layer. So remember, just like in Photoshop, just like in Illustrator, if you want to see a window that you don't see, you can go up to Window, Layers, or you can see the hotkey is F7. So now I have the layers, and let's make a new layer. Same way we make a new layer in Photoshop. We just click that little thing, and I like to label them. It makes your life a lot easier. And then I'm going to be on that layer. Then I'm going to get my pen tool, and I'm going to fill it. So we can click on this, remember, solid box, just like in Photoshop and in Illustrator. It means you're going to have it filled. So I'm going to fill it with the paper color, which is white. I do not want a stroke, so I'm going to say none. So again, you have to have the pen tool selected in order to see these options up here. So we're going to just click on the solid box, click paper. We're going to click on the box with the hole in it, which is your stroke. And we're going to say none, which is up at the top. And then I'm going to click, and we're going to make a slightly diagonal line. Click, click down here, click again down to make it a little bit diagonal, and click back up here to close it. And that is how you can design it just like we did on that template. Right? Pretty snazzy. It looks kind of cool, right? Want me to do that again? Okay, no problem. I'll do it again. So I'm going to just hit the delete key. So say you're like, man, I don't like that. I can hit the delete key after I select it, and I can delete it. So the pen tool, P for pen, with the pen tool selected, it should bring up different options in your options bar. We're going to click on the solid square, and we're going to say paper, which is white. We're going to click down here on the one that says stroke. It's just like it is in Photoshop or Illustrator. The box with the square inside of it is for a stroke. We're going to say stroke of none. And then we're going to click on the far left side where the black line is once and let go. Since we're drawing straight lines and not curving the pen tool, we do not have to click and hold. So I'm going to click once and let go. I'm going to move it over here to the edge of this black line and click once and let go. You don't see a color yet because you don't have enough points to create actually a color between those lines. I'm going to move all the way down, and I'm going to click and let go. I'm going to move down here to a diagonal-ish line, click and let go, and complete the shape. Completing the shape, you can tell the shape is going to be completed. Just like we do in Illustrator, there is a circle on the bottom right of that pen tool. And the way you get to that circle is you have to move the tippity top of your pen to that anchor point. Remember, those anchor points are those little squares. And we're going to click it close, and now I have a white area that I can type my letter on. So when you look at designs and you're like, wow, that's cool, I want to do that, or I want to do something similar, you just want to start thinking about and dissecting in your brain, how did they go about doing this? Another way is to make a shape with a pen tool on the top and make a shape on the bottom and fill it with the pattern. However, I personally think just making a white box over it is easier. So that's why I decided to do that. What I would do is I would put another layer and I would call it shape, just so I have all my items independent of each other. Shape. So let's go ahead and get the shape tool. The shape tool, remember, you do need to make sure you are aware of this. The shape tool is different than the frame tool. The frame tool has the X, meaning I am placing artwork in there. The shape tool means I'm placing a color in there. So I'm going to go ahead and click and hold and get the ellipse tool. I'm going to put it on my new shape layer. So remember, to get to the layers, you can go to Window, Layers. If it has a check, it's open. You just probably need to click on the tab. New layer. The reason I go fast through that is because we've done this so many times in so many softwares. You should know how to find the window layer and how to make a window and how to make a layer. But if you forget, just ask. So we'll click on this, click on here and say shape. How do I make sure my circle is a solid circle? It's not chubby, it's not skinny. Shift. All right. So in order for me not to lose this circle, if you look up here, you'll see that my color is white. Then I'll probably lose my circle on the white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eye for eyedropper. I'm going to pull this goldy color, and now you can see it's in my fill. Now I'm going to go back to my shape tool, and I'm going to hold the shift key, and I'm going to draw a circle. And if I want to, I can move it with the move arrow. If I want to resize it, I can resize it. Now the other thing you'll notice is when you draw a shape, if you look up here, you'll see when I draw a shape, say I draw a square, but I'm like, man, I really want a diamond. Well, if I get my arrow and I move it to the corner, just like we had in Transform in Photoshop, you'll see it's a curvy arrow. With that curvy arrow, that means that if I click and hold, I can rotate this shape and make it into a diamond. So anytime you have a shape or something like that, move your arrow away from that binding box, and you'll see a curvy arrow, and you can then rotate it. Now, if I rotate the circle, no one's going to know, right? Because it's just a circle. So that's why I use the square. So I'm going to delete this square. Now, if I wanted text to put in the name of the company, I could click a new layer and say text, and then I can make some text. So that is just one basic way to do a letterhead. Now I can get my text tool. I can go up to Window. I can go to Type and Tables, and then I can look at Character, and I can look at my fonts, and I can pick a font I like. Now remember, if you want to use a font from dafont.com. Some of you listened and did this on your last assignment. Some of you did not listen and do this on your business card assignment. You have to put that font file in that folder we just made where our artwork is, okay? Because if I open it up, I'll often still see the font, but if I wanted to click on it and adjust some things about your font to see how it would look if I adjusted the tracking or the leading, I will not have that option because I do not have that font. So when you download a font, if you do download one from dafont.com and use it, you also want to put it on your jump drive, because remember, when IT has you sign off, it's like you were never there. So that font is erased. Whereas when I install fonts on my computer at home, they're always there. So you always want to put that font in the folder with your project and turn that in with your final project. So this is just one way you could do a letterhead. The other way you can do stuff is with the line tool. Just like we have a line tool in Illustrator and in Photoshop, you have a line tool in InDesign. So say you didn't want all this art on the background. You just wanted like a line and your logo. So let's get the line tool. It's underneath your text tool. Now the line tool, you'll notice up here, we don't need a fill, right? Because the line is actually a stroke. So with this line tool selected, I'm going to go up to the fill and I'm going to say none. And on the stroke, I'm going to pick a color. These are those Pantone colors. Remember we talked about CMYK? That's why it's CMYK. I'm going to pick the blue. And I can change again how this line looks. If you just want a solid line, I'm going to make my point bigger. The point changes how big that line is, how wide or how fat it is. So I'm going to make mine bigger so you can see things. So obviously I would not probably want a line, and if I hold the shift key, it goes perfectly straight. I probably wouldn't want a line that big. Actually, that's not bad. Not too bad. But say you don't want a solid line. If you click on this solid line box, wherever you have a box that has double-sided arrows, it means you can change something about it. So I can click on these double-sided arrows, and I can go thick, thick. And so this is probably where I'm going to want to make it bigger so you can see it. So I'm going to make it bigger, so it's not, you probably would not want to use lines this big, but it's just so you can see it a little bit easier. So you can go a thick, thick line. I can go a thick, thin line. So you could do this and then have the information and the logo. You know, I can move this up here. I could place my logo up here, put some text over here, and you can do that. You can also change it if you want to a thin, thick, thin. So you can change the way the line looks based on just clicking on that solid line. Yeah. If you want it to go to the edge of the paper. If you want it to go to the edge of the paper, it has to go to the black. Now, I would not do, you know, probably the textured background or the pattern background and lines, but I just wanted you to see lines because when we looked online, you can see that there are some letterheads, sorry Johnny Depp, letterheads that just have like a line. So you could just have like a solid line, University of Arkansas, very large, make an art box, place your logo, use text, and add text on there. You don't have to use a logo for this assignment. It's just an option. If you want, you could. You can just put text in there. So if you wanted to, you could just do lines. Like this person just used the pen tool and created a little shape, put in their art, or put in their business name, organization, put their contact information on the bottom. This one just did a logo, a little tiny thin line separating the text. So you don't have to have a lot of artwork on there. If you just want to make it really clean and classy and just have lines on there, you can. Like this one just has Yale School of Medicine and then their information here and a logo down here. So you don't have to. Oh wow, no way. Oh, I thought that, yeah, it is us. Look at that. Ha! We came up on a Google search. Here's a letterhead example. So there's us right there. So you don't have to do a logo, but you can if you want. You could just do a line and text. You could do, like this person did, a solid rectangle. Then they showed you just part of the logo, and then the logo up here and some text with one little line. So you can do that. So I'm going to give you some time to work on your letterhead. So that way if you have any questions, I can answer them. So let me get back to my InDesign. And I'm going to show you, say you have something cut out of a background that you want to put in here. We talked about cutting out things from a background at the beginning of class. Well, the beginning of the semester, I should say. There is a special way you have to get that item from Photoshop to InDesign. It is very, very common to use Photoshop and InDesign together. We do it all the time in newspapers and magazines and books. So I'm just going to make a new background. I'm going to just place some kind of pattern on there so we can see it. I guess we'll use Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp. So again, I'm going to just drag Johnny Depp, the box all the way down to the bottom, all the way over to the right, all the way over to the left. I'm going to go up to Object, Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionately. Like we talked about last time, I'm going to use this white arrow. It gives me the hand. Then I'm going to move Johnny Depp over. Say for some reason I want to put a Mississippi State Bulldog head with him, or some kind of cut out object with him for my letterhead, which this is not a letterhead, but this is just to show you. I'm going to open up Photoshop now. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to open up Photoshop and remind you how you can cut out that bulldog head or an item. So what Courtney had is she's pulling her logo from her business card. She's just taking it from her business card and she is going to put it on InDesign. Because what Courtney did is she has that's a JPEG. She had something from, okay, these are my puppies. She had something from her business card that she wanted to see. So let me see if I can pull a business card to show you how you could pull it from your business card. Because it would be different than actually cutting it out. So here's student work examples. Logos and business cards. She didn't draw anything. All right. So say I wanted to take this dress that this girl has on her business card and I want to put it in InDesign. You will notice that if you try to use the move arrow and drag and drop to InDesign, it will not let you. So I have my InDesign and I have my Photoshop. So I clicked on InDesign and I clicked on Photoshop so I could see them both. So I did InDesign. If I want to get to this layer and change, my computer's lagging. If I want to get to this dress layer and I want to go to InDesign, I'm going to click on InDesign. Then I click back on Photoshop, move the move arrow. Mine actually placed, but Courtney's wouldn't place it. So what happened with hers is what we did is I said, well, if we can't drag and drop because her computer wouldn't let her, what we can do is we can select the layer. Let's see what this looks like. We can select the layer that has the item you want to copy. We can make a new document. File new. Let's just say I'll do 5 by 5. It might not be the proper size, but then I'll do a transparent background because the dress is already cut out and I can call this cut out dress. What I'm going to do then is I'm just going to move this window over and let go. So I have two windows. I'm going to use my move arrow. I'm going to click on the dress and I'm going to click, hold, drag the dress, and now the dress is there. Now this girl didn't clean hers up super well, but I'm just going to roughly clean it up for her. Ooh. Alright, so say this was actually clean. Ooh. I'm going to save it. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to save it as a PSD. You'll notice I do have two layers. One layer with the dress, one layer with layer 1. And I'm going to call it Cut Out Dress. And I'm just going to put it on the desktop. Now if you were doing this, you would save it in the folder with your letterhead. Because again, any item that you place into InDesign needs to be within that folder because it is a link to that file. If you saved it on the desktop and you log out, the next time you open up InDesign, you're going to get an error message saying that it is missing or has broken links. So you're going to save this in that folder that you have for your letterhead. Now me, I'm going to go back and label it dress. Yeah. Yeah, jump drive is fine. It's just I don't want to save this. So save that folder that you're doing your letterhead on your jump drive. Call it letterhead. Put any artwork you want to use for that letterhead in that folder. Now I'm going to save it again, and then I'm going to quit Photoshop. Don't save. Now I'm going to go back to InDesign. I'm going to say File, Place, Command D. Now the one thing you have to do, if you do not do this step, if you have a white background, a pink background behind that dress, that color will come through. So if you go to the bottom, you can say Show Import Options. Then I'm going to click on my dress, my PSD, because it has two layers, the dress layer and that transparent background layer. And I'm going to say Open. Now it's going to say, Teresa, do you want the dress layer or the layer? I can choose both. But say layer 1 was pink. I can turn that layer off and say, no, I don't want that layer. Then the only layer I will be importing is the one that has the eyeball or the visibility by it. Then I can say, okay, and then there's my dress. And she's cut out and she has no background. So that is how you can take something from your business card, say you drew a piece of artwork or logo that you really want. Or if you're cutting it out of the background in Photoshop, you could do it similar like we did for the bulldog head. And then you can say File, Place, select the Show Import Options, which is right here. And then it'll allow you to select what layer you want to import into InDesign. And that's how you can put something in that has what we call a COB, cut out background. Usually that's for like mug shots and things like that in newspapers.